am Salem from Chip Theory Games, and I'm going to be showing how to set up the different types of combat in the Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. So this will include how to set up a clash, how to set up a delve, as well as how to sort of explore a delve, and then how to set up a dungeon. So how to set up a clash is going to be printed on the card or in the quest book itself. It's going to have the little diagram here. Tells you where to put the entrance tile in relation to the clash mat, where to spawn enemies in what order, and also if you spawn any chests as well. So if we were to do this one, for example, we're going to have to populate a chest here, and we also have to populate a relic, which is the other side of that chip, over to here. Now we're going to have to populate our enemies. So the way you calculate enemies is going to be based on your current group XP multiplied by the number of players. So for this example, I have us at 14 group XP. We've got 2 players, so that will be an enemy pool of 28 points. Now, the way you sort of draw enemies, you always draw the largest one possible first, and that deducts from your current enemy pool. So if we're at 28, the first enemy is going to have to be a 20. And also, because of this encounter's rules, the first one that is drawn needs to be a humanoid, which is sort of one of the enemy types. There's humanoid, Daedra, and beasts. So we got our 20-pointer, and it looks like we've got ourselves a Lich, which is a humanoid, so we're good there. And it's got 8 health, which is printed on its stats there. So 8 health, and it goes on the number 1 position. So we've already done our 20, so now we have 8 enemy points left to fill. So the next highest available is a 5, because there's 1, 5, 10s, and 20s, and we only have 8 left, so we can't do a 10. So we've got 8, so get ourselves a 5, and that is going to be a Nord Marauder, who has 6 health, and will go on position 2, just like that. And then, so that's 25 there, so we've got 3 left, so that's going to be 3 level 1s. So we've got a mud crab, a wolf, and a bog dog. Okay, so this one will go on spot 3. This one will go on spot 4, and this one will finish up on spot 5. So even though there are numbered positions that we haven't filled, we don't have the enemy pool to populate them. And then once the enemies are set up, this is where your adventurers get to start on anywhere on the entrance tile, which is this piece here. This is sort of how you approach this fight. And you can place them wherever you'd like on the spot. So if you have somebody who's trying to maybe stay back, play a little bit safer, maybe use some range, you might spawn them on the back line, whereas your melee fighters are probably going to go right up there to try and get into the fight as quickly as possible. But otherwise, then you're all set, and you can jump right into round 1 of combat. All right, and the next type of conflicts might be a delve. And so with a delve, you actually don't have any kind of pre-delve setup for the most part. The cards aren't going to have any kind of special diagram. You just pretty much start with only the entrance tile. So we take our adventurers and we choose where to place them. We can have them placed on the back line, or if we place them on the front, that'll be on this little spot that's connected by that explorer marker. So that actually has no function in a clash, but it has all of the functions in delves. And what that means is the moment an adventurer steps on those hexes, it's going to explore the next room in the delve. So if you start there, it's going to auto-populate that first room. So we draw the top card in the delve deck to determine which delve tile we need and how we are going to fill out that tile. So we've got ourselves this tile here, and it is also going to spawn a chest, and then because we are at 2 players, it's going to spawn a 5 and a 1. Now, first thing we got to do though is rotate this tile to actually sort of start building the delve. Now, the only restrictions is you have to connect the tile you're on, which is like the exploration tile you're currently working from, has to connect to another exploration tile in the room you're revealing. So we could have it go this way, we could also have it go this way, or however we would like. The other restriction is you have to make sure that the delve tile is rotated in such a way that you can continue exploring, which means there has to be a exploration icon sort of on its own, not already connecting to another room. So we could do it just like this, because then this one is on its own. We are able to move to that tile and continue exploring in that direction. Next, we're going to spawn any chests. So it does tell us to spawn a chest, and there is a chest icon on this tile. So we'll put that just like that. Lastly is going to be enemies. So it's going to spawn a 5 and a 1. However, there is only one enemy icon on this tile. So we actually only have to spawn that 5. You do have to spawn what's strongest of what's listed. So we can't just choose to spawn over the 1 level. We have to spawn that level 5. Okay, and we've got ourselves a Nord Marauder. We put them just like that. So that's actually all before we've even taken our first turn. Because we spawned on that exploration icon, it just auto-explored the first room. And now you'd be able to start combat, doing all of the other sort of start of combat things, and jump right into it. Now, as far as exploring the delve further goes, on our turns, we might have one of our adventurers move farther in which case they will then explore the next room in the delve. So you'll draw another delve card. It'll tell you what piece to use. And this is a situation where there is a little bit of restriction as to where we can rotate this. So because we have to have one of these exploration tiles be on its own, not be connecting to an already explored room, we can't do something like this, because now all of a sudden both of these entrance tiles are connecting to a room that already exists, and so therefore we would kind of lock ourselves up. There's nowhere to explore further. So we have to make sure one of those is sort of freestanding and able to expand elsewhere. So we can do something like that. It is not going to spawn any chests, and then since we are at 2 players, it's going to spawn a level 1 first, and then it will spawn a level 5. Now, when there are multiple enemy spawn locations, you will always spawn the first enemy on the farthest one. So actually having this ordering of 1 and then 5 means that 5 pointer is going to be closer to us. Because the 1 is going to go back here, and then we've got the 5, just like that. Additionally, these delve tiles might have other kinds of effects that trigger either the first time you move into them or upon revealing them. So make sure to read the delve card in full while you are generating it. Additionally, this one here is also going to spawn a sky shard, and sky shards will have their own little tokens to indicate when a room has a sky shard, and you'll just place it in the room to mark that you need to actually step in there. Once you do step in there, you'll gain it, and then upon completion or upon leaving the delve, that will represent an experience point that your party has gained. Otherwise, you'll continue exploring through the delve. The delve ends once 3 sky shards have been revealed, or if the delve card has a different modifier as to what ends the delve. So you're able to keep exploring for as long as you want to. You are also always able to leave a delve early. Perhaps things get a little too dicey, not quite able to sort of survive all of the enemies that the delve is throwing out at you. You are able to leave, provided that all adventurers are outside of the threat range of enemies. It's sort of like a fast travel out of the delve option. Alternatively, if everyone can get back to the entrance tile, you're able to run away as well. All right, so lastly, we have dungeons. And dungeons are kind of a hybrid between the two. A lot of their rules are going to function more similar to clashes. For example, everything is a predetermined setup. There isn't exploration in the delve sense. But like delves, they have all these different tiles and larger sprawling battles than just the more isolated clash map. So, like a clash though, they are going to follow a diagram. Now, dungeons are all determined based on quests, and each region sort of has a dungeon that it might feature in some of those quests. So in the gazetteer in the back, it'll have the setup instructions for a dungeon, and then the quest you're playing on might have unique rules and effects that use that setup instruction to sort of modify it. So here, for example, we have Black Rose Prison, which is the dungeon for Blackmarsh. Now, on here you'll see that it's got some of the numbering like you might find in a clash, but then it's also got some other things here. So we'll end with the numbering of the standard enemies first and do these other things to sort of show a little bit differently how they function from a clash. So the quest might tell you, for example, these star locations. It might say, hey, there's going to be some prisoners in these cells. Those are going to be level 10s place it on each of the start locations. So then you grab 3 level 10s and place them where the stars tell you to. And it might say something like, these enemies aren't going to be active yet because something needs to happen in the dungeon before they become active, so don't spawn them with health. Again, all of these instructions will be in both either the dungeon setup in the Gazetteer, if it's sort of a setup instruction that every time you go to that dungeon it'll follow those same rules, or it might be a modification provided in the quest. So we've got all of those. Next might be, okay, hey, there's this hex A. That is going to have a very specific thing happening at A. That might be place a quest enemy. So we've got ourselves a quest enemy here. Who might be in that one? So we've got all these different prisoners, but that one is the most special. Then we've got some chests that spawn. Now, when you are setting up a dungeon, you do not need to worry about which specific delve tile you're using. You only need to worry about the size. So for example, when I was setting this up, I just put these here because that was the order in which I drew them. The icons on them do not have any inherent function in a dungeon, as opposed to a delve. And so where I'm putting these chests, for example, might not have chest locations on them anyway. And that's okay because the setup of the dungeon is overruling the tiles that I put there. Lastly, then we set up the clash mat as we would set up as normal. And depending on the dungeon too, there might be some of these numbers in other spots as well. So it is just by coincidence that all of these enemy spawns are on what we know as the clash mat. But another dungeon might have enemies spawning in these wings or in the cells themselves, like active enemies. But keep in mind, though, these layouts are going to be different for every dungeon you come across. So if we have the same XP as before, which was 14 times the number of players, which is 2, so we've got that 28. So then we'll go ahead and spawn our 28 points of enemies. So we've got ourselves a Flame Atronach. He's got 8 health. Goes there. And next we've got our 5, which is the Nord Marauder. Has come up all 3 times. Imagine that. And then our 3 1s. All right, once we have all of those enemies situated, we are good to place our adventurers on the entrance tile as normal. Now, that is how we set it up. Of course, what makes dungeons a little bit more unique than even clashes and delves is they usually have dynamic mechanics that are happening. So for example, this one here, we've got these prisoners in these different cells. Depending on the quest you're doing, those prisoners might be friendly, they might be hostile, and they are currently inactive. Not only are they not going to activate on their turn, but they don't even have health chips yet. They cannot be interacted with. Per the dungeon rules, these are sort of like doors that you can unlock to open. And then once you've opened them, then that enemy inside is going to become active. There might also be other parts. For example, we didn't use anything with this B hex here. But in a quest, there might be something that triggers something to spawn on that B hex. That'll be all determined by the quest itself. We just wanted to make sure all of these dungeon layouts have different specified hexes that we're able to then reference in quest steps. And that is the quick overview on how to set up the different types of battles in Betrayal of the Second Era. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out our campaign page if you haven't already, and take care.